The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, May the 14th, 2025. We are live here at CHD TV and we have an amazing show for you. Unvaccinated and unafraid, 100%. And I have three brilliant guests for you. But before we bring them on, let's just do a few headlines for you. First headline coming up now is COVID vaccines may reduce women's lifelong egg supply. This is a rat study suggesting this, but again, more dangers from the COVID vaccines and disastrous for women and their lifelong egg supply. So there's that. That's Michael Nevadakis. Another study shows higher miscarriage rate among women who received the COVID vaccines. We've been hearing a lot about that from a lot of you and the disaster of these miscarriages. So unvaccinated kids are healthier than vaccinated kids. Why aren't public health agencies investigating? Why indeed? And this is why we're going to be doing this show today, because it's so important. We do so many shows on death and destruction and the injuries from vaccines. But let's talk about the unvaccinated. Should we be afraid? Let's see. Let's speak to our guests. Let's bring on Jenna and let's bring on Rachel and let's bring on Sarah Kanoya. And many of you will remember Sarah Kanoya as a long-time host of Tea Time. Sarah is having a baby. Sarah, let's start with you first.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of our longtime watchers have heard part of my story, but we do have a big family. I have 5 kids. I started out very blind and trusting and ready to do whatever the doctor said and wanted. And it really wasn't until the COVID crazy, there's got to be a silver lining somewhere. And that is that it really woke me up. That made me ask a lot of questions. And so going on, I basically stopped vaccinating my children that year and was bold and courageous about it. There was probably a couple of times, a little fever here or something else there. And as we progressed through our journey, I knew I didn't want to give Tylenol or Advil for that fever. I wanted to let it do its work and break. And then, right around that time was when the doctors were asking my teenagers if they wanted the HPV vaccine. And, here I am all naive coming to Polly, hey, should I get that for my kids? And she goes, well, they're boys. Do they have a cervix? No, it's just these things where you don't know to ask, you don't know to think, you don't know to question, because it's just you fall in line. It's what everybody else does. But we do know that fear is the currency of the day, and I'm just not going to pay it anymore. And it has been such an empowering, awakening time in my life. And then, this new baby, I have no thoughts, no second guesses. He's not going to receive anything, not from the vitamin K, not the azithromycin or whatever you want to call it, the antibiotic from the beginning. We're not doing any of it because I don't need it. I think the Lord made the world exactly the way he intended it, with he's not surprised. He's not surprised by COVID. He's not surprised by measles. He's not surprised by any of this stuff. And he's given us what we need. And I just want to be able to walk through life with this new baby, trusting in all of those promises and knowing that CHD, among others, is providing us a way, knowledge and information with vitamins and all kinds of ways to cure and treat our bodies, because we know things are going to come up. It's not if you're going to get sick, it's when you're going to get sick. But how you treat it makes all the difference in the world if you're considering something like lifelong health. I don't want to be healthy just for the next 5 days, or even when they treat cancer. I don't want to be healthy for the next 5 years. I want to be healthy for the rest of my life, and I want that for my children. So it's been this journey of unlearning, relearning, and it's very empowering.
And Sarah, when's the baby due? Soon, right?
June 13th. We have a month left.
And how are you feeling? Because this is your 6th child?
6th child, 5th pregnancy. 4th pregnancy was twins, so that was awesome and surprising. But yes, thank God there's only one in there this time. I'm feeling okay. I'm 42 now. And, there's another thing that the doctors want me to be afraid of. I found an amazing midwife. We don't use the G word. Geriatric has not come up one time except out of my mouth. Because that's just another scare tactic to try to, whether it be to prevent families from having more or scare women into thinking they need more treatments or more scans or more fear, whatever it is, it just allows for more control. I haven't heard that word. So I'm going to deliver this baby at 42 and we're both going to be strong and healthy. I'm tired. I mean, but they say your body's running a marathon every day, you grow a baby, but in all realistic terms, I'm doing really well.
But you're also homeschooling your other children. You're running around doing sports events. I mean, you're constantly on the go. I see you the whole time.
Absolutely. And I have a very supportive family. My husband is amazing. My older kids are amazing. Having a couple more drivers in the house is such a blessing to be able to get all of it done. I definitely am not trying to be Superwoman or Wonder Woman and do it all myself. But I do everything I can, and they really do help me out whenever I need it. I mean, it's been amazing. This is probably the least stressful pregnancy I've ever had. I don't have a toddler, which makes a big difference. My youngest ones are 10. I don't have the pressures of get up at 6:30 and make your lunch and get out the door and do all these things. I don't have that. It's been awesome. Does homeschooling come with its own stresses? Sure, but it's not the same. And it's something I welcome with open arms. It's something we planned for and wanted. So it's all been really nice.
Well, it's very exciting, Sarah. Now, we're going to come back with some questions for you in a minute, but we're going to bring on Rachel Williams for a second, because Rachel, again, many of you may know Rachel because she was the host of Peeps TV. She's the California chapter. I don't know if you're the leader or part of it for Children's Health Defense. You're the mum of 2 amazing boys, and you've been in this fight for some time. And if you were following the bus, viewers, you will know Rachel Williams. But Rachel, do tell us your story anyway. It's fascinating.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Well, I was dealing with infertility about 20 years ago, and that kind of led me down a health and wellness journey. And I was talking to one of my college friends at the time, and she had warned me, she had started researching vaccines, and she said, they're not all they're supposed to be, and you should really look into it since you want to have children. And she sent me some forwards of Dr. Tenpenny's emails. And, this was before we had websites and books and all the information that we have at our fingertips now. And so I read what the ingredients were in vaccines, and just intuitively, I knew that vaccines could not equal health. I knew that injecting formaldehyde in a baby did not make any sense. And that was enough for me to say, okay, no child of mine is ever going to be vaccinated. And then fast forward to a few years later, when we did adopt our boys, our first son was born in the hospital. We didn't pick him up until a couple weeks later. So he did have the vitamin K and the Hep B. I wasn't there. But after that, in my arms, he never received a single vaccine. And I've been bullied by doctors. And this, again, he's almost 17 now. So this was a while ago. And before, we knew how much the pressure has, become. Now I know parents are getting bullied constantly, but I was even kicked out of a pediatrician's office when he was 3 months old. And that, instead of, breaking my spirit and making me comply, it kind of lit a fire in me, because I could not believe that they asked me to leave the practice and not come back. I was just furious that they would treat a new mother like that. And so that kind of just kept me on the journey of learning more. And of course, moving to California had its own set of complications when 2 years later, after we had moved to California, SB 277 came on the scene. And I couldn't believe that our constitutional rights, for making decisions about our own bodies was, being threatened. I just was flabbergasted that we were dealing with this. So of course, that sent me to, going to the Capitol and fighting these bad bills, and just kind of been in this movement ever since, and was thrilled when Vax came out. and, felt like, okay, the momentum's coming. More people are going to learn the truth. And it's been slow coming, but I really can't believe where we are today. It's exciting to see how many people are awake to the issues right now surrounding vaccines. And I love that Secretary Kennedy's in position. So I'm just really hopeful that more and more people are going to see the difference between the unvaxxed kids and the vaccinated kids, and that more parents will be making the same decision I did, because really I didn't need doctors. My kids were just unprecedentedly healthy, and we really just treated everything at home. If they were sick, they were sick for 24 hours to maybe 2 days at the most, and things would pass and they'd get their strength back and feel better. And I will say with that, I fed my kids organic baby food that I made. So part of their health really did come from me consciously making, decisions for their food choices as they were growing up, and not having junk food in the house, and not giving them a lot of sugar, and, just really limiting as much as I could the bad stuff. And, we kind of did the 80-20 thing, I think, with 80% good, healthy, organic food most of the time. And, if they go to a birthday party once in a while, like 20%. But, I think that was a huge part of their health too. So I just want to throw that in.
Rachel, a lot of people are afraid to adopt in our movement because they're afraid that the children will come to them vaccinated, and people will try, we don't want that for a number of. How did you manage to cope with your second child? Or did he have anything?
No, so I actually was at his birth, just outside the door, but 45 minutes later, we got to go in and hold him. And the nurse asked me, she said, do you want him to have the Hep B and vitamin K? And I honestly, that was 15 years ago. I didn't know about the vitamin K back then. So I actually don't even remember if she asked me that, but I did know about Hep B, and I just was able to pass it off and say, like, oh, we'll handle that at home with our doctor. And she was like, okay. And so on his paperwork, he did not receive Hep B. And we were able to then just bring him home and obviously not give him the Hep B or anything else. So he's only had the vitamin K.
And so 15 and your other son is 17. And the big question that the bad people out there will say that they, are dangerous, they're unhealthy, they're going to, they could have died of measles. Tell us about their health and also their intelligence, because I know they're super bright kids.
Yeah, they are. They, obviously they have different genetics being adopted and not biological siblings. They are both really smart. They were always ahead of their peers, just through like infancy. When they were babies, people used to comment and say like, oh, they're so attentive and bright. And I have a journal where I wrote down their first, words and sentences, and it's just pages and pages of language. And it was just so exciting because every day was a new day where they'd say new things, and they were saying full sentences, before they were 1.5. And so that was fun. And then now as high schoolers, the silver lining here in California, my kids can't attend school because of not being vaccinated. So we've found that you can do a junior college dual enrollment as a high schooler, as a homeschool high schooler. And so they're actually taking junior college classes right now, and getting A's and B's, and handling it just fine. So the silver lining of being in California right now is that they're going to get their AA degree when they graduate from high school, and they'll have 2 years of college finished. So
it's wonderful. I mean, what a success story. Thank you, Rachel. Well, let's bring on Jenna now. Jenna Burwell. Welcome to CHD TV, Jenna. It's lovely to have you here. Now, you're unvaccinated, your children are unvaccinated. This is a very exciting story, because we're told, because that's 2 generations, we're told, I'm not going to ask you your age, but we're told that being unvaccinated, you really shouldn't have made it. You shouldn't be alive right now. So tell us, and all people listening, she's a registered nurse for 16 years as well. So we want to hear all of that story. Tell us, Jenna, everything.
Yeah, so I was very blessed to be raised in a home where my mom, back in the 80s, researched vaccines even back then. And she knew someone who had a vaccine injury. Their daughter had a vaccine injury. So she started researching vaccines. And now this is back before the internet. So she literally had to go to the library to research, what is this thing I'm putting in my kid's body? What am I doing to these kids? Is it necessary? Is it safe? And she ultimately chose no, that this is not something I want for my family. And, you think it's a stigma now. It's been a stigma for years. So growing up, it was, a little rough sometimes, with the doctors even back then. So as I progressed and became a mom myself, it was kind of a natural choice for me. Obviously, I saw all my siblings, I'm the oldest of 7, healthy, thriving, not having any issues. And we continued to hear stories of vaccine injuries. And so it was a very easy choice for me to just roll into that when I had my own children. But at nursing school, a little bit of a hiccup there because you have to have certain vaccines in nursing school to be able to go into the hospital and do all those things. So I did titers for everything. And it showed that over the years, I had natural immunity to everything, to every vaccine that I would have needed, I was able to titer out of. And so nothing was required of me in nursing school, which is, amazing. It's a testimony in and of itself that their natural immunity is real, it exists, and we're healthy and thriving. So able to get through nursing school, had my 4 lovely children. Now in my nursing career, I went through the ICU and ended up in labor and delivery in the nursery field. And so I've become that nurse who is there with the consent for the hepatitis B vaccine. And the policy is that they have to have it within the first 2 hours of birth. First 2 hours, here you go. Here's your very first vaccine. And just witnessing how much parents have no prior education of what vaccines are before delivering their baby. You think, oh, you're going to have a baby, you're going to prepare for 9 months, you're going to know all the things coming in. But when I come in with that consent form, they usually look at me and say, well, is it recommended? Or, oh yeah, obviously, I'm going to do this because you're a nurse and you're telling me I need to sign this consent form. And they haven't done any research. And so a lot of them, I'll make sure, do you understand what this is? Have you done your research on this? I am not going to have you consent to this unless you fully understand what it is that you are signing up for here. And I can't tell you how many times they ask me, well, what would you do? And I'm like, oh yeah, you asked the question because I'm a professional. I'm not going to sit here and bully you and tell you not to do it. But if you ask me my opinion, I'm happy to give it to you because I have seen so many doctors bully new parents, and it's heartbreaking to sit in that room and to watch that happen. And so to be in a place where I can encourage parents, where I can tell them that just because a doctor is telling you something doesn't mean that they are God, that it's the law, that they know every single thing, they know every single side effect, and that to be in a position to empower parents to start doing their research, and that it's their child and it's their decisions and not the medical team, not the medical community there. I've loved being in that position, and I feel like I've made a difference in that, and I hope I have. And again, just to empower and educate, because that's what drives out fear. Like you said, unvaccinated and unafraid, it's about being not afraid, and education, real education, right? Not the education that is the first website that shows up on the Google when you ask it, but truly researching and trusting your gut intuition as a mom and as a dad, and praying about it and standing up for what you believe in. Those are things that drive out fear. And so it's, go ahead.
I'm really interested in a couple of things. Number one, why do you think these doctors bully the way they do? Because we've heard, I can't tell you how many stories of this, and they're lies, that bear lies. Do you think these doctors genuinely believe these lies? Or do you think they're just spouting off what they've learned at medical school and they're sticking to it like a robot? Or do you think they're just evil?
I think that they truly believe in these things that they're telling the parents. They truly believe that this is science and it's proven and no injuries have ever existed and it's not linked to anything, because that's what they were told in medical school. It's what it's the community, right? It's all their peers, every conference they go to, any, event they go to with their peers, trainings, all these things. It's just reinforcing these ideas. So of course, usually if you're in a group where everyone has the same beliefs and they're encouraging you and uplifting you in your beliefs, you're going to continue to believe those things and never question them. Do I believe any of them have done any research to prove vaccine injury or to prove that maybe these ingredients aren't the best thing? I don't think that thoughts even crossed their mind to search the other side and to see why these parents are starting to stand up and believe what they believe. They know that I don't vaccinate, that I'm, anti-vax. And they know it because during the COVID vaccine, our lovely hospital sent out a list of everyone who was unvaccinated to the entire hospital, which was lovely. But so they know that. Have they ever sat down with me and wanted to have a conversation? No. Have they ever asked me why I believe the things I believe and why I do these things? No. And so I think they honestly have just bought into it so much that they are blinded to even understanding the other side.
I have so many more questions, and we don't have time for me to ask them all. So I'm going to get you back, definitely get you back on mothers to be, I think, because I want to know more about if you saw any adverse events to the Hep B, all of that kind of stuff. But let's stick to the unvaccinated and unafraid. Let's bring everybody on screen right now. So Sarah Canoy is same as me. We're ex-vaxxers. Rachel Williams is very clever and did not vaccinate any of her children, and nor did you, Gina, as well. We're learning. As Sarah always says, once you know, you do better. And I love that phrase. So we don't feel bad about what we did, because none of us set out to hurt our children. We did what we thought was right. So let's get that clear. But I want to talk to you all about the being unafraid bit, because the media portray like measles is killing all these children and all this. Are you unafraid of sickness, measles, mumps, rubella? I don't know, whatever else is out there. Are you afraid? Sarah, you go first.
Yeah, I'm not afraid at all. I don't anticipate that we're going to never have an issue, that we're never going to have a fever, but I do believe in vitamins, supplements, good nutrition. I believe in all of that stuff. So and I like what Jenna said, you get natural immunity. It's not a fake one. It's not anything that comes with neurotoxins or heavy metals or anything else. You have an infection and you watch, and you're not silly. It's not afraid. That's a difference between afraid and concerned. You can be concerned for side effects. You can watch out for infections, and there are ways to treat them, but there are certain remedies that are reserved for life-saving situations. And then there's certain remedies that might be wait and see. And those are the things where you just have to use discernment. You have to use knowledge. You have to find people that you trust. Truly, like Jenna said, you have these communities of people. If you're going to be fed pharma, vaccine, antibiotics, then that's what you're going to believe. And if you surround yourself with people who understand that, garlic is amazing, that, or oregano oil is amazing. There's all these things that can be antiviral, antibacterial ways to treat things. You learn and you know better, and then you do better.
What about you, Jenna? Because you've gone through many of these sicknesses yourself, and your children, I presume, have had illnesses. No one's ever saying the unvaccinated kids are not going to get sick, right?
Right. Yeah. My children obviously have gotten sick. They have to have an immune system. You can't build an immune system without getting sick. But my kids are completely healthy as far as, like Sarah said, anything above and beyond a fever. We never dealt with that. My kids never had the flu, never had an ear infection, never had strep throat. Just none of those things, all 4 of my children. And so am I afraid of them getting measles or mumps or any of those things? I trust their immune system. I trust the ingredients, that we've put into their body. I trust the decisions we've made. And as a parent, fear is inherent. Everything is scary as a parent. So it's just choosing, what the pros and cons are of each thing. And if they get measles, they get measles. We're going to get through it, and we're going to, treat it as it needs to be treated. But I honestly believe that they have an immune system to where they're going to either have already built up that immunity or are strong enough that they're going to be able to fight it on their own.
All right. And Rachel, I presume you've pretty much got the same thing to add.
Well, I just want to say that knowledge dispels fear. And an example of this was, and this is where parents, you can't just go into this lifestyle without educating yourself and without learning and doing your due diligence to research and learn all the things about each vaccine and each illness that we're talking about. When my oldest was, I think 4 years old, he was outside our house and leaned up into a pipe and like cut his eyelid and, sliced it pretty good. So I, cleaned it, put a patch over his eye, took him to the ER, and they were, of course, trying to give me, pressure me to do the tetanus shot, which we know isn't just tetanus. And I knew, because I had watched a lecture that Dr. Tenpenny had done on it, that after the fact, it was useless. And I also knew that, tetanus can't live unless it's in, manure or, like the whole rusty nail thing I knew wasn't an issue with us. It was a clean pipe in our grass, in our lawn. It had been rained on and snowed on. It was clean. It wasn't anything to be concerned about. I also knew that we had 10 days to decide to get the immunoglobulin, or I don't know how to pronounce that. Maybe Sarah can help. Jenna, because you're a nurse. But I just knew all of that. So when the doctor came in, he was trying to pressure me. And I said, no, this is what I know. And he backed down so quick because he could tell I knew what I was talking about and I was educated.
Can I add to that? Part of the fear, Rachel, good for you for knowing better, but some doctors and some parents, they don't know better. And you walk in and you say, hey, it was a clean pipe at my house. It wasn't buried under dirt. It's been exposed to oxygen. Tetanus doesn't work till after. They will still bully you. And we talked about a little bit before the show started. These doctors have amazing power. So if you want me to be afraid of something, in all reality, I am more afraid of the harm that vaccines will cause. And I'm more afraid of the harm that a doctor or medical professional can put on a family by taking away a child or putting a parent at some sort of legal risk for declining a vaccine. I mean, heaven forbid something would have gone wrong with your son, Rachel, knowing that tetanus shot would not have done a thing to help his health later on. But if there was an adverse reaction to whatever, be it coincidence or whatever, you could have potentially been in legal trouble, which is that just is a whole nother layer of this conversation, and maybe we can have it another time. But that is the part I'm more afraid of, all of that, than measles.
Here's a question. I think if I was Sarah, and of course we have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show, everybody. So everybody calm down. These are not necessarily the views of children's health men. But if I was Sarah, I would never go to a pediatrician. Do we have to go to pediatricians for our babies? I met many parents that never go.
Once I connected the dots on that and realized that those well visits are just for vaccine appointments, I quit going, and it was the most freeing thing. And, we didn't need those doctors. We didn't need those appointments. I realized, well, all they're really doing is weighing and measuring them. I can do that at home. And the rest was just for vaccines, which we weren't doing. So saved me a lot of gas. I didn't have to go anymore.
Jenna,
Well, it is unfortunate because a lot of insurance programs will require this from children or parents. If you cannot be enrolled in this specific insurance, just like you can't be part of certain practices because they require it, which is unfortunate. But that's another, better, do better. You find those private programs or chiropractors or someone else that's willing to see your child for health, that you're not bound by their terms.
And Jenna, what about you? Because you have these beautiful unvaccinated children. Do you go to a pediatrician?
Not regularly. I mean, we've had to go, for small things in the past. Like my daughter had stomach pain one time, and as a nurse, sometimes you know too much, and so you're like, oh, this could be this or that. I better get her checked out, things like that. And sports physicals, that was one thing we did have to go to the pediatrician for. I probably could have found a way around it, maybe use a naturopath or something like that instead. But no, I mean, the regular yearly visits, all those kind of things, we tried to avoid. And let me tell you, the few times that we did go, we were kicked out or bullied or told, please never come here again, find a different pediatrician for your next sports physical, those kind of things. So it's very sad. Again, they didn't ask me why I didn't vaccinate. They didn't want to have a conversation about it. It was simply, your kid's unvaccinated, get out of my office. Even though my kid was healthy and never needed to be in the doctor's before that.
Well, I mean, we could go on for ages and ages and ages, but we are out of time. But I would like to hear from all of you, as if you were speaking to a young mother-to-be who does not know about the dangers of vaccines and how and is full of fear. So if you could all just give that speech that you wish you'd had Well, I wish I'd had when I was a young mum. So who's up first? Sarah, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, coming from cynic number one over here, I really did feel like I was lied to for a really long time. So if I'm talking to a brand new mom, besides the whole, do your own research, it's more of figure out who's controlling the information. Where does that source of information begin? I mean, truly, it's one of those just follow the money type of things. Who is trying to influence you to do a thing, and what kind of harm has that caused in the past? Is that difficult information to find? Oh, you think maybe someone's trying to hide something from you? For me, that's what would spark my fire. Don't hide facts from me because you have an outcome that you want. If that's the case, I know that I'm going to follow probably the opposite and figure out why you're trying to hide it from me. Those are the kinds of things. So from a new mom, understand and trust that our intuition was God-given. That discernment is given to you from the Lord to be able to provide the best that you can for your family. Understand that there are people, entities, organizations out there who have a desired outcome. And honestly, I mean, the Bible tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil. And for me, that's where it all comes down to. People who are pushing this agenda are earning money and they love it. And that's not awesome. I'm not saying every doctor and every nurse is evil, but I'm saying at some point, the root cause of all of this does come from greed. And I don't want to subject my child to someone else's agenda because they're getting rich while I'm having to suffer consequences, even as small as, something ADD or an ear infection, all the way up to, extreme autism, profound autism, and or death. That is not a risk I'm willing to take. And, just like a doctor wants to tell me, even when they were trying to convince me to get the HPV shot, they said, sex isn't always consensual. Well, excuse me, sir, that's not an effective way to get me to do anything to try to bully me. That's going to send me, like Rachel, the opposite direction. So understand what their methods are, why they're doing it, what their motivations are, and figure out if that's really what's going to be the most beneficial, helpful, healthy thing for you and your family.
That's amazing. Rachel.
I would say to a young mom, God's given you this gift and he doesn't make a deficient baby to come into the world needing pharmaceutical products and medicines. There have been decades of propaganda around this, and you have to just take the time. And for me, it was the ingredients. It was just really one look at the list of ingredients in vaccines, because a lot of people just think it's just water and a little bit of the virus and saline but when you see that list, you just cannot think that you'd even be willing to spoon feed that to your baby. So why would you inject it? and then the fact that none of them have been tested and tested together. So I think those are the things that really spoke to me, and hopefully would speak to a young mom really willing to consider things right now. But a lot of people are so programmed to just believe the narrative, they struggle to even want to pause and look. So I would say take the time. You have to.
That's right. And Jenna.
Yeah, I would say look at the vaccine ingredients, look at the vaccine schedule, look at how many vaccines your child's going to get and what they are. Do you believe that your 1 hour old child has hepatitis B? Do you think they're going to get hepatitis B as a newborn? Do you have hepatitis B? If the answer to all of those is no, then why are you injecting this when they're 1 hour old? I would tell them, educate themselves and then talk to veteran moms. I mean, how many moms or grandmas regret those decisions now, or have had a change of heart, or have suffered through a vaccine injury? If you start talking to veteran moms and grandmas, you'll realize that vaccine injury is a lot more common than you think. Just me personally, in my tiniest bubble, I know neighbors who've had one. I know coworkers whose kids have had one, family members and friends. So just in my tiny bubble, I already have those stories. So start talking, gather wisdom and knowledge from friends and people you look up to, and trust that intuition and make the decisions for your child. You are the parent. Standing up for them starts day one, and it doesn't end. And it's difficult sometimes, but you have to make those tough decisions. And your little newborn, your baby's trusting you to do that for them.
So Jenna and Rachel, with your unvaccinated children, Do any of them have autism? Are they paralyzed from the waist down? Do they have seizures beyond belief? Do they thrash their head against the window or the door or anything else they can find? Do they have any of the symptoms that our children have that are vaccinated?
No.
No.
So one thing that the new baby coming and your children will never have is vaccine injury. And I can't tell you what a great life that is to live without vaccine injury. And I'm sure our viewers are agreeing right now because many of them also have vaccine injured children. And it is a life of pure hell for them and for us. And it's awful. So Sarah, congratulations on this amazing baby that's coming next month. We cannot wait. We'll get you back on when you're ready for that, to hear about that. And Jenna as well, would love to get you back on Mothers to Be. There's so many more questions. And Rachel, you are just so inspiring and wonderful. Now, how, if people want to contact, they may want to contact you, Rachel, about adoption advice or anything like that. And Jenna, you have a business that you've set up that helps young mothers as well. And Sarah, just with your wealth of knowledge, and probably people want to shower you in congratulations. How can they contact you all? Do you have social media?
Yeah, I've got Facebook and Instagram, and I'm wearing my Vax shirt in my profile picture, so I'm easy to find if I'm not shadow banned. Okay,
excellent. Sarah?
Yes, I have all that stuff, mostly private, but I do have a CHD email. So sarah.canoyer@childrenshealthdefense.org. I would love to be showered with congratulations.
And Jenna?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Jenna Burwell 32, and feel free just to send me a direct message if you want to get in touch with me.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for coming on. Rachel, it's very early for you in the morning, but thank you for coming on and for inspiring people. And we're going to do more of these stories. So if you're listening and you have unvaccinated children or a story that you want to tell, please do contact us at stories@chd.tv and we will do your story. We'll either pre-record it or we'll get it out on the morning show. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the unvaccinated section of Vax2, which is super inspiring, and I know inspired Sarah. I hope it inspires you all. Please do share this section out to young mums so that they know that they do not need to be afraid of not vaccinating. So much love to you all. Pray big, my friends. Stand firm and never settle. And we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
You've never met a parent who regretted not vaccinating, but you meet hundreds of thousands who do.
So we took a break after the first leg and we all had time to reflect on what had just happened with this amazing amount of people turning up to tell their stories. And that's when we suddenly realised the unvaccinated people are there for a reason. We need to start the second leg interviewing them as well.
They're not doing vaccinated versus unvaccinated studies because they're frightened of the results. If you did a vaccinated versus unvaccinated study, we know what's going to happen. The entire vaccine program would come into question.
They won't do the vax-unvax study. We, the people, are going to go out there and see for ourselves. What are the unvaccinated like? We know what the injured are like. Let's now look into the world of the unvaccinated. Look at all the unvaccinated children that are alive. Extraordinary.
Hi guys.
Hi. All right, so is there anybody here that's had a vaccination? Mommy and Daddy have had a vaccine, but none of you children, not one.
I mean, they have amazing immune systems. When they get sick, we get over it in one day.
Both of my kids are really, really healthy.
Health-wise, she's insanely healthy. I mean, she never gets sick.
They're both insanely intelligent. Their
health is ridiculous.
And they recover fast from things.
My kids are super healthy.
They are very healthy kids. They have traveled to many places. My kids have gone to Nicaragua. You can't get more third world country than that, trust me.
With no vaccine.
With no vaccines.
I have super healthy, great, unvaccinated kids.
How is all your health?
Well, we're all healthy and I've never been to a doctor for any reason except a broken arm and a Neuromuscular injury.
I have 3 grown children.
They're all grown up. And did you vaccinate your children?
No, I did not. They're all completely unvaccinated. I can probably count on one hand how many times they've had to go to the doctor in their entire life.
I have 15 or 16, I can't keep track, 15 or 16 nieces and nephews, and none of them have received vaccines, and they're all very healthy kids as well.
10 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, 5th one on the way who will not be vaccinated either. They're all extremely healthy.
They're all so healthy. It's like they don't have asthma. It's like they're not sick all the time. They get a cold and they get over it.
Every time we've been in a situation where my kids have the same thing that the kid next door has, their symptoms are night and day. They fare so much better and heal so much quicker.
I've probably been sick once this year, and it was just a cold. I had a stuffy nose, and it lasted for like 2 days.
Even his friends who are partially vaccinated are sicker in general. My kid has missed like maybe a handful of days from kindergarten to 6th grade.
My other friend who has a daughter who's also unvaccinated, I saw her at school, and so I kind of whispered to her, I'm like, so how many days of school has your child missed? And she went, and I said, mine too.
It was so blatant that these children were super, super healthy.
I had never seen health like that. I didn't know that health like that was even possible. Not needing antibiotics in one's entire life.
I've never had an antibiotic in my life.
48.
48 years old, never had an antibiotic, ever.
He's 16 years old, no allergies, no rashes, no ear infection, no colic, no antibiotics.
She's never had an over-the-counter medication, not once.
Neither one has ever had a shot, Tylenol, aspirin, antibiotic.
No antibiotic.
Neither of them, apart from that, have had any antibiotics or any meds.
She has never had an antibiotic.
My daughter had an infected toe, and she had antibiotics once for that, but that's been it.
People that I know that do vaccinate, I know their kids have more, seems to me, more health problems. I mean, my kids don't really have any, like definitely no chronic health problems. They've never been on pharmaceuticals. They've never needed, they've gone to the doctor for broken bones, which is why it's one thing I like doctors for.
The totally unvaccinated kids are always the most healthy ones. So my daughter also had like 3 ear infections before she was 6 months old. After that 6-month appointment and we stopped, she hasn't had one since then.
Nothing. She was perfectly healthy.
Robust health.
Yeah.
She's never had an ear infection. Neither of them have, actually.
What about ear infections?
No.
Because you're 14, you must have had at least one ear infection in your life.
No.
My daughter is now 12 and has never had one single ear infection.
Ear infections?
No, none of my kids have had ear infections at all.
Whatever?
No, none of them.
See the number of children in these unvaccinated populations that have never even had an ear infection. I mean, I can't imagine that. My son was a walking ear infection. All we did was toss antibiotics down his throat in order to keep the ear infections at bay. And now you have these children who are unvaccinated, and the significant, large proportion of them have never seen an ear infection. That is just nigh unto incredible.
I mean, our expectation was that these children were going to be constantly sick, that their immune systems were just not supported. The reality was completely the opposite of that.
You have no vaccines at all?
Never. I'm in my 60s. I've never been vaccinated for anything.
Anything at all?
No, and then I had 2 kids that are now 28 and 30, and they were never vaccinated.
This is Palmer, he's 6. He's been sick maybe 4 days his entire life.
Never had any mumps, measles, chickenpox,
eczema, asthma, ear infections, ADD, ADHD,
no ma'am.
autism, ADD, ADHD, peanut allergy. Does he have eczema, allergies, ear infections?
Just big, strong muscles. And a really smart brain.
I could see the difference in kids. I used to be a kindergarten teacher, so I know what kids, should look like and what they are looking like today. Both of my boys were reading by the age of 4.
My family thinks it's like voodoo, like we're crazy people, and how could you not vaccinate it? But then every time they see our kids, they're like,
It's
They just
unbelievable
seem
how healthy
so
they
ahead
are.
of the curve. By 18 months, she's singing songs. She can have conversation.
He's a very bright boy. He's 3 years old and he's learning Mandarin. He knows Spanish. He knows English. He's a bilingual child.
Sign language.
He knows sign language. He's a very bright child.
She does sign language. She speaks Spanish.
Yes, teach him Spanish.
Two.
Yep.
I'm speaking 3 languages.
Yep. So he's English, Spanish, and sign language.
They're very smart, and it's actually a challenge to challenge them with reading and math, and they're beyond their level.
They're all highly intelligent, bright-eyed, healthy children.
He's 3 months old and he is so strong.
He's super strong.
Hi.
He's super healthy. He's happy, smiling all the
Where's
time.
Bowie?
I can't get over this 4-month child is like basically standing up. I'm just supporting her.
Do it over there, guys.
She is alert. She's so strong. This is the best therapy ever. Grab an unvaccinated baby and cuddle it.
Sorry.
It's perfect. Guys, you know, I'm sorry to report to you. It's the truth. It's what we're seeing out here. We're not making this up. This is the people of America reporting to us their children that are vaccinated and injured, and their children that are unvaccinated and perfectly fine. Everything suddenly became lighter. The minute we invited the unvaccinated into our lives, everything went up like that. So you could do a Sid story, which broke our hearts, and then in would come an unvaccinated family. And it was not long before we could see that their story is the same over and over and over again. Just like the vaccine injured is the same over and over again.
Doing this for 15 years now, I'll share with you that the vaccinated kids are the sickest. The partially vaccinated kids are not as sick. Then the unvaccinated kids are the healthiest.
I've been in practice long enough that I can actually tell you that the unvaxxed kids are healthier. But I can also tell you that if the unvaxxed kids are a problem, then according to what's out there, there should be a lot of hospital admissions for my unvaxxed kids getting those things. And I'm seeing the opposite.
The most interesting stories that we did were the first child was injured, or maybe the second, and they go on to have more children and decide not to vaccinate because of the horrors of what's happened. And the difference between their unvaccinated child, the same parents, same everything, is that unvaccinated child is 100% healthy.
Yeah, I have quite a few patients in my practice who have 2 children, and those are great controls because most of them didn't figure out right away, so their child got some vaccines, but they all stopped it fairly early on, and there's a huge difference between the 2 children and the level of how they were affected. But I mean, if you start looking and pulling in all those people who have that same experience, I think you're going to see the same thing across the board. The level of that second child and how they're affected is going to be much less, if at all, compared to the first child who was completely vaccinated.
Now, did you work this out in time for your next child?
Oh yeah, she's not vaccinated.
At all?
Absolutely not.
Not vitamin K, nothing. I know it's not vaccination, but nothing.
Nothing.
So how is she?
Fantastic. She is she's completely typical, beautiful, smart, caring for her brother. She's been on 1 antibiotic her whole life. She's a picture of health.
So your other 4 children have no vaccines?
No.
At all?
None.
Wow.
No.
And I bet how you describe them
Great.
compared to the vaccinated child?
They're much healthier than the oldest one. They fight disease faster.
My 4 unvaxxed kids are far healthier than my vaccinated child. She, when she gets sick, she gets sicker than the rest of them and more often than the rest of them. She's down for longer than the rest of them. Whether that's vaccine related or not, I don't know, but it seems to be an awful coincidence.
I was in the ER with my oldest all the time, and these 2 are never sick.
When my boys were little, we also had a lot of asthma and breathing treatments and antibiotics over and over and over. No ear infections, but all of those other things.
And these girls don't get what your
these girls, no.
She's never needed anything, and she's 2 years old. By this time, this child had already been at the hospital. He had, had dozens of antibiotics.
Lucas is the only one that's completely unvaxxed. And it's interesting, he's our healthiest child. He has never been sick, never even so much as had a cold.
She's always the last one to get sick and the first one to get better.
His left ear, it was so significant, they actually had to kind of rebuild his eardrum from it.
And that's, to me, that's one of the stark contrasts I see is our 13-month-old has had not a single ear infection.
Riley has had none. So Caden gets strep throat about 3 times a year. He also has allergies and ADHD. But we still love you. You're still very smart. So don't worry. Riley has been sick once.
My first is the sickest child that I have. She'll get sick. She'll be sick the longest. She'll be sick the hardest, actually. I mean, I guess she'll feel the worst pain or the most symptoms. Then my other 3, they'll be sick maybe a day and less than 24 hours and they're done and they're fine. Their body really knows how to fight whatever disease they come in contact with.
He is compensated through the vaccine injury compensation program.
My oldest 3 suffer with eczema, suffer with allergies, constipation, and they're the first ones to get sick.
The only time he's gone to doctor for checkups is because he's asked to go and wanted to see what it was like to go to the doctor's office.
You wanted to go to see a doctor? Okay, yeah, right.
Well, because Keenan has to go so often, and so he wanted to see what it was like to go.
Do your unvaccinated children have or the injuries that we see so commonly in the vaccinated? Do they have the ear infections and the antibiotics and the eczema, asthma, allergies?
None.
Nothing?
No.
So the results of your study is the unvaxxed are supersonic healthy and the vaxxed are not.
Yes, right.
So the conclusion of the unvaxxed study in your house is what?
That the unvaxxed kids are far healthier.
I don't worry about measles. I don't worry about polio. I don't worry about these things with her because she has a strong immune system. I worry about it with my son who is fully vaccinated because he would not be able to survive any of that, even though he was vaccinated for it.
It hurts me to watch the development, honestly, of my son because I see what my daughter could have done. And I feel an immense guilt for vaccinating her.
So in our scenario, we've got, a control for a lot of different variables. Same genetics, same mother and father, same environment, all 3 children. And the key discriminator that makes these children different is the presence or degree to which they're vaccinated.
Have a look at these vaccinated, unvaccinated families, which are controlled for genetics, they're controlled for their food intake, their environment, and everything else, and consistently we're seeing the unvaccinated, never vaccinated children are far healthier.
So we have here ear infections, antibiotics, high-pitched scream from the vaccinated, unvaccinated, none of the above. And that became probably the most exciting revelation of the whole tour.
Now that I've seen so much of it and seen so many vaccinated and unvaccinated family members with the same thread, it's undeniable that an unvaccinated child's immune system is going to be that much more functional, that their brains actually function better. And when you understand how vaccines work and what the components of vaccines, including aluminum and all of the inflammation, do to anybody, no matter what your age, it makes complete sense that in the long run, that child's going to be much more functional and much healthier and able to do battle against any disease that comes along, the majority of which have no matching vaccine.
When you get out into the population and you start to meet people who, because they've heard of our stories, have not vaccinated their children, and you see these wonderful, healthy, happy, robust children, then it just makes all the difference in the world.
And these are the children that actually now we need to protect above all others. Not force them to be vaccinated by rule of law, but to protect them because they're going to be looking after the damaged children in the future.
There's no question about what we saw. What we all collectively saw was the same thing. Health, health, health with the unvaccinated, injury, injury, injury with the vaccinated. Same story.
That doesn't mean they're never going to get anything. The only thing it says to me, my kids are vaccine free. My kids will never, ever, ever be injured, ever, with 100% certainty. They'll never be injured.
I mean,
If I was a new parent listening to these unvaccinated stories over and over and over again, it would be game over for me. I'm going your way.
Yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't. You know, if you're seeing an unvaccinated child completely healthy, thriving, alert, and then you see all these sick kids that are constantly going to the doctor and on antibiotics and vaccinated, and you see all the eczema that they have, or asthma, allergies, all these different things that kids are affected with. Choosing a healthy child versus an unhealthy child, that's really your choice.
Autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
pledged to find out what is driving the country's rise in autism.
Compiling medical records from a number of databases. He'll direct resources to study environmental factors, exposures, and external factors.
Scientific progress on this has been slow because scientists are frankly scared to ask the question.
Genes don't cause epidemics. You need an environmental toxin, and we're going to look at all the potential culprits.
With no a priori thumb on the scale, you can't look at that.
I'm very grateful to the Secretary for finally saying from an important public platform that this is an epidemic and we need to find the causes and we need to stop it.
Other issues CHD has been pushing for years are finally gaining mainstream traction.
Today we're announcing we are removing industry members, pharma members from FDA advisory committees.
We're seeing reports that you're considering removing the COVID vaccine as a mandatory shot for children.
The recommendation for children was always dubious. The vaccine itself does have profound risk of myocarditis, pericarditis, even strokes.
Very, 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 very few people are still taking these things. In that sense, the mRNA vaccines for COVID in the marketplace are effectively dead.
We are working together to change the federal fluoride recommendations, and we're looking at the science now. There's a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and low IQ in children.
Health officials announced plans to phase out 8 artificial dyes from our food supply.
The FDA is effectively removing all petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply.
We don't have a surveillance system that actually works, and that is a crime. And we will do that right away. And I understand the perverse incentives that need to be changed right away.
When there's a political will to answer a question like this, it will happen.
We're going to change things for real this time.